I'm Jim Check with Now Media. I'm here in Cowtown. With me, Ian Burns, our managing editor, all the way out in the nation's capital, two of the biggest and most important cities in Canada, I guess. And here we are in both of them. Lots to talk about too on the really big show. First, though, Carney to recognize Palestine as a nation. The feds are warned on their ex post. Tiff says no recession in the future for Canada this year, and thousands line up for jobs. And South Korea gets a deal. All that and a lot more on the really big show. How's the weather out there in Ottawa? Beautiful day here in Calgary.
It's quite cool, actually. It's been unbearably hot here for quite a while, but now it's quite cool and cloudy, actually.
I'm wearing my hat because I'm on kind of a vacation. You're going to go to the zoo here later today, but let's kick it off the really big show. Let's kick it off with Mark Carney as he stumbles through this. Let's just play this clip and we'll talk about it.
Next up, so Paul Dutch, Global News. Speaking of the United States, did you consult with the U.S. about your decision to recognize Palestine? And can the sustainable peace process work without U.S. being on side?
Look, the United States is the essential partner in peace in the Middle East, and in virtually in many parts of the world. And we've seen that demonstrated. First point. Second point is that the president does take a direct interest in resolving conflicts, and as has with respect to a broader set of developments in the Middle East. And so again, the United States, this president will play and continue to play a central role. Others have responsibilities, Canada included, responsibilities on the humanitarian side, responsibilities with governance and other aspects that we're supporting. And we make our own independent foreign policy positions. And when we see opportunities, when we see necessity, which is what we see in this case, given the retreat of the prospect of a two-state solution because of the facts on the ground, as I explained, when we see that possibility and we see the combination of an ability to influence because of our own voice and actions, but because of others and other processes that are being put in place. But to be absolutely clear, and I'll finish on this point, which is, I referenced earlier an E3 plan, that early stages peace plan. I talked to Prime Minister Starmer about it, President Macron as well today. Prime Minister Starmer, this public domain, briefed the President of the United States about the plan a few days ago. So there are connections all the way through, and my colleague obviously in regular contact with her, homologue.
You said you came to this decision independently, so you're saying you would have come to this without France or the UK making this decision?
No, look, I mean, I meant independent of the United States. But yes, it does matter that others are moving. It does matter because it increases the prospect of success. But the core of the decision is taken on the principle that of self-determination and the rights of people to self-determination. We have long, Canada, speaking for Canada now, have long felt that this should come later in a process, and that our recognitions, other recognitions, the state of Palestine, should come at a point of maximum impact during a peace process. We're now at a position, I'm sorry to repeat myself, where in our judgment and the judgment of others, is that the prospect of a Palestinian state is literally receding before our eyes, or being eroded before our eyes. And so the act of the intention to recognize, which is what we're saying today, and working with others to support a Palestinian state, possibility of a Palestinian state, reestablishes that opportunity.
Wow. Can you translate?
I have no idea what he said there. Like,
Throughout that entire thing, I took it for granted. Nobody else on the planet has a first idea what he's talking about. What I want to know is, does he know what he's talking about? Or is
I
he
just,
also is he also wondering like what the hell am I saying? It's just like, and then he contradicts himself like 3 sentences later. Like it's
I
terrible.
like,
This man
if you're
who we're told is a genius does not look or act like a genius. I'm sorry, Mr. Carney. Maybe he's a genius when he's doing a graph or something like that, but he
uh,
doesn't seem to know what he is talking about. It's actually quite a serious problem that he suffers from, I think.
yeah, if you were looking to instill confidence in Canada, don't watch this.
Yeah, it's agony. I mean, put yourself in the position of somebody that really adores Mark Carney, like even his family or his friends or something like that, or his political supporters. I feel like you'd be watching that. It'd be like watching a sports game in the last minute where you've got like a narrow lead or something, and you have to hold on to it. It's like agony. It must be really painful for them to listen to that
And the
because
timing
he
of it,
does not
I mean,
sound like he doesn't sound like he knows what he's talking about, and he doesn't sound like he believes what he's saying either. I mean, it's a bit of a in communication at least. His he's in a crisis. I think he really fails to communicate.
and the timing of it couldn't be worse here because August 1st is our trade deadline. We're going to come back to it a bit, but here it is. Mexico had that same August 1st deadline, and here's a tweet or whatever they call it on Truth Social. Trump just put it out there that he gave Mexico an extension after he said there's no extensions, but they've agreed to extend the deal with Mexico for 90 days. And right now, Mexico will continue to pay 25% because of fentanyl, 25% on cars, 50% on steel and aluminum and copper. And yeah, so like they got an extension. Not sure what we got.
I mean, usually whenever something happens to Mexico, that's a sign that it is about to happen to Canada, isn't it? So I would, just based on the pattern that we've already established exists with Trump, I would say we're going to get the same thing. But it's not necessarily good, is it? Another 3 months of those tariffs
Of
without having any kind of certainty. It's not a good thing. There was a time
yeah,
where it was a good thing, or it seemed like a good thing to get like an extension, but I don't think it's a good thing now. I think it's terrible actually.
we'll come to a tweet here in a bit here, but and then this is from Hollywood and Blacklocks, and this is she's just going back and saying like Carney makes history with this by announcing recognition of Palestine. You know, the intention to recognize anyway, but MPs, including members of the Liberal Party, voted that down in 2024. Stark contrast.
Yeah, including Liberals. It was put forward by the NDP, wasn't it? But yeah, I mean, that's just last year. I mean, it's been forever, decades and decades where there's been pressure to recognize the Palestinian state, and it hasn't happened. I mean, it really is of enormous consequence, at least in the Canadian context, that he's decided to break with this pretty old tradition at this point, nearly sort of 80-year tradition. So yeah, it is a big deal that he's done it.
Yeah, and it's, and back in 24, they talked about how it would be rewarding terrorism, and here it is. They've changed their tune, I guess. And then this is what I wanted to get to here. This is another post by Trump on Truth Social saying, "Wow, Canada just announced that it's backing the statehood of Palestine, and that's going to make it really hard to do a trade deal with them." And the timing of it is just odd. Like I'd say it almost be a given in what you said that we would have got that 90-day extension that Mexico got, with the exception of this possibly, because I don't see Mexico coming out and saying they're going to have the intention, because it's not even that they've recognized the state of Palestine. They say they have the intention to recognize it. It's no different than Keir Starmer, whereas I think Macron was more to the point and said he recognized it.
Yeah, Macron, to his credit, I suppose, you have to say, he was a bit more clear about it, wasn't he? A bit more candid, and he just said, "We're going to do it." It's a bit weird. Both Macron and Starmer are extremely unpopular leaders, and they're both leaders of countries with pretty large Muslim minorities, and almost 100% of the time, followers of Islam are pro-Palestine in Western countries. Weirdly, not so much outside of Western countries, but in Western countries. And, both Starmer and Macron are pressured by the left, which is, as we know, completely obsessed with the Palestine issue, even if they don't know very much about it. So in both cases, it's political, I don't think it's based on principle necessarily. It's a very political decision that has been made. Also, both those leaders have been called out by name by the current leader of Israel. So there's no love lost there really between those leaders in Israel. Mark Carney, I don't know. I mean, his party, obviously, the Liberals and people that are inclined to support the Liberals tend to be pro-Palestine because they're on the left, and that is, like I say, an obsession of the international left. It's almost like top 5 priorities, no matter what you're talking about. Palestine's probably in there. So it makes sense that they'd be putting pressure on them. And then there's also the sort of Muslim population in Canada. But yeah, I struggle with the timing, as you pointed to. I mean, it's literally a day or 2 days wasn't it, before the deadline?
This week, next week, the week after that.
Yeah.
Why not get Canada's house in order and then, worry about other people's. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we have enough problems in Canada here that we need to focus on Canada, at least for a hot minute, right?
Well, it's so peculiar, isn't it? Because he said at the beginning of that press conference, he said, I had a meeting with my cabinet, and I think maybe he said premiers or something, but he said he had some meetings, and it was partly about the trade deal. But then he went on to say, but it was mostly the real purpose of the meeting was Palestine. You kind of think, you what, mate? 2 days before this deadline with the United States, the most important trade partner, not just trade partner, but like let's be really candid about it. The country that guarantees that we exist as a sovereign nation. Forget the UN and all that bollocks. It's America that guarantees that. I know that's an awkward thing to say when they're threatening our sovereignty, or Trump is, but it's also true that their military keeps us as a country, as a sovereign country. So, yeah.
Well, Carney said it himself.
Most peculiar, anyway.
In his speech, he said, the United States is central to the peace process, not only in Israel, to the rest of the world. That means it's our protector. And yet, just a couple of days before we could have a trade deal or not have a trade deal, he decides that he wants to slap them. So I don't know. Maybe that's his bargaining power. Maybe that's what he does. And here's the strange one, and this is put up by Mark Slapinski, as he's like, let me get this straight. Canada doesn't recognize Taiwan as an independent country, but it plans to recognize Palestine as one. Obviously, China plays a big role in Canada. It's interfered with our elections a lot, and they build our ferries too. So why would you want to make them angry?
Well, it's just pure realpolitik. It really is with the China-Taiwan situation. It's brutal, Henry Kissinger style realpolitik. And by no coincidence that Kissinger was very much a friend of China. But it's like, look, China's the second biggest economy in the world. It's next to the US, the essential country on this planet. Basically, it creates almost everything that we consume. It's the number one sort of manufacturer in the world. Obviously, it has quite a large military and nuclear weapons and all the rest of it. So they've looked at that and they've thought, okay, well, we have, because Canada, like other countries, used to recognize Taiwan, or to give it its proper name, the Republic of China. They used to recognize that, but not the People's Republic of China. Then they swapped. For most countries, it happened in the 1970s, and it's just pure realpolitik. It's just pure politicking, and it's not about principles. It's just, all right, China's the big boy. Sorry, Taiwan. Like we can't do it. And that's kind of how it's worked with a lot of countries. That's how it's worked. There's so many of these. There are so many of these countries out there that aren't recognized, or if you want to call them countries, like Western Papua or Western Sahara, there are so many. There's loads of them in Russia. And around Russia and the periphery of Russia, that kind of legacies of the collapse of the Soviet Union. There's some in Africa. They're all over the place, but Canada doesn't recognize them, and certainly doesn't risk alienating other countries by recognizing them. Like Canada doesn't go recognize Western Sahara and in the process infuriate Morocco. They won't do that because it's stupid. It's a stupid thing to do. But with this, the reality is there is no Taiwan lobby, or not a big one anyway, in Canada, and there is no Western Sahara lobby. There's no West Papua lobby really to speak of in Canada. So there's nothing to be gained from it. But recognizing Palestine satisfies to some extent the Palestine lobby, which is a mix of all kinds of people, left-wingers, Muslims, all sorts of people. It is red meat thrown into their midst. And that's why Mark Carney's done it, basically. He can talk all he wants about famine in Gaza and things like that, and the humanitarian crisis. That's going on all over the world right now. You know, any conscious person knows that there's an awful lot of crises going on around the world right now, even in sort of Southeast Asia, Africa, all over the place. And yet, you know, nothing like this is happening there because there aren't those very sort of cynical considerations at play. And that's the truth of it, really.
Some of the United Kingdom's most distinguished lawyers have warned the country recognizing Palestine as a state could breach international law. And that was a letter sent to the United Kingdom's Attorney General. The lawyers say Palestine does not meet the legal requirements for statehood as set out by the 1933 Montevideo Convention, which says a state must have a defined territory, effective government, and capacity to enter into relations with foreign states.
I mean, it's all true, isn't it? It's kind of obvious. I mean, that's particularly sensitive for Keir Starmer in the UK because he's very committed to international law, this concept of international law. And, you know, the British just gave away some territory and gave money to the country that they gave the territory to, the Chagos Islands. And they did it because of international law. So these people here, presumably a bit more consistent than Keir Starmer is. And they came out and said, yeah, well, there's this. It's actually kind of, I didn't know a lot about this, but the Montevideo Convention is actually quite important in international law. It's one of the first attempts to really sort of map out specifically what it is to have a state. And obviously, when you look at those criteria, defined territory, there is no defined territory for a Palestinian state. That's kind of like reason number one why there isn't a Palestinian state, because they always claimed more territory or mixed and, you know, different claims for what land they would have, and then Israel had a different claim and other people had different claims. So that's one reason. Effective government. I mean, neither the West Bank nor Gaza has effective government, obviously. It's a racist terrorist organization in Gaza in charge. And then in the West Bank, you have Fatah and the Palestinian Authority, which is basically a dictatorship, exceedingly corrupt, also very racist and nasty in many ways. So obviously they don't have effective government, and then capacity to enter into relations with foreign states. Again, not something that they have really, because they don't have the preceding two. They don't have that organization in place. So yeah, I mean, for the people out there who are loyal to international law, this concept of international law, it is a little bit awkward, isn't it? Because it's kind of like, so is international law just, you just cherry pick what you like and what you don't like? Which is what critics of international law have said for many years now, that it's not really a law. It's not proper law. It's something else entirely, and giving it the name law is wrong. I don't know. I mean, international law perhaps gonna take another hit there.
We're going to move on from that. You can go back and watch that clip over and over again, and you can share in your comments if that struck confidence in your mind. But here's Pierre Poilievre said, remember when Carney promised to double home building? And here you go. We talked about this a couple of days ago on the CMHC housing starts, and then we can look. Here's the actual what's happening since 2021, and there's the forecast forward. That doesn't look like a doubling of housing to me to 500,000 units a year, unless they change the definition, which they may well do. Change the definition of what qualifies as housing, and tents will soon qualify as housing, I guess, or hotel rooms for that part.
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose they'll be thinking we've got a few years to make up for this promise, but we'll have to wait and see. It doesn't look very. It doesn't look possible.
They could just right the ship and actually have it move the right way. That might help. And then the federal employees who post partisan, self-serving, or vulgar comments on social media, the screeching left, even by anonymous personal accounts, should expect scrutiny and criticism. It's about time federal employees are cautioned as to what they say, because like when we talk about Bill C-18 and then how it's supported by the government, like it's really hurting media. It's not really the government doing it. It's the Liberal Party, because it's the one party says that it would defund media and free the media, and the other one continues to have them at the begging bowl. So this again is, and it says ultimately we need to be carefully think about how we uphold confidence in our ability to provide advice to the government and serve Canadian and nonpartisan and impartial manner. And I mean, that would be a change, a refreshing change, if we could have a nonpartisan, like bureaucrats at the minimum.
Well, I mean, anybody with any familiarity of the bureaucratic class knows that they're all, well, the majority of them favor liberalism and the Liberal Party as a consequence. So I mean, it's very difficult for them to not indulge that side of themselves. So
Here's one of those things again. Questions to ask yourself to assess your social media activity. What is the content of your post? And does it constitute an opinion of the government, policy, or program? Why is this important? They should go back and pass that underneath that RCMP officer, that lady that went on to say that family values represent extremism. Maybe they should just slide that underneath her while she's talking and say, maybe just think about what you're saying there.
But this is the problem, though. I mean, it's almost like a state religion now. It says here, don't post partisan content, but there's a state religion which is in effect partisan. It's left-wing ideology, for want of a better term. I know a lot of people would reject that description, but this kind of progressivism, liberalism, post-liberalism, whatever you want to call it, it is like a state religion. And if you read primary sources from 100 years ago, instead of back then they would talk about Christianity, they would invoke Christianity and Jesus and the Bible and so on. Now it's this new ideology or religion or whatever that guides them. So it's very difficult for public servants who are maybe not that clued up about all this, or maybe not very bright. How are they supposed to know? They just repeat things. They just repeat principles of the state religion, like this cop that you referenced there, and then all of a sudden they're in trouble, and they're kind of like, what? But that's the religion of this. That's the religion of this state, or this. It's the ideology of the state. So for those people, I kind of feel bad because they've never even thought of it that way. They don't realize that the positions that they support and promulgate are actually political and partisan and contentious in some way or another. And this is the problem as well with CBC, which is also highly partisan, obviously, and completely subscribes to that religion or ideology, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I do feel sorry for them. How are they supposed to know that it's actually tendentious what they're saying? Because they just think it's neutral. They just think it's like saying that, sunshine is nice or something. They don't realize that it's partisan.
And I'm not sure if Tiff Macklem is trying to compete for Jim Cramer's job, because whenever Jim Cramer talks, you want to do the opposite. But here he is saying that, he doesn't think that there will be a recession this year, even though the economy shrank in June. Macklem acknowledged an unusual degree of uncertainty in months ahead. And first quarter GDP in Canada was boosted quite a bit by exporters trying to get ahead of the tariffs. But in the second quarter, we're starting to get payback for that. But, he didn't drop interest rates. Doug Ford, we're going to talk about it later. Doug Ford, not happy with that. And then, he was wrong back in right there after COVID when he said the Canadian government will not raise interest rates into the foreseeable future. And then he raised them 19-fold. He can't live that one down. Like, he should have lost his job for that. And he continues to be in there. And I think he continues to make the bad calls because he says, well, we haven't seen widespread layoffs yet. We haven't seen widespread job losses, but when you look at the labor market overall unemployment rate of 6.8 and youth unemployment rising quite a bit, there is some slack in the labor market, right? It's almost like comedy. Like, most people are saying this is bad. People are going to lose their homes and all kinds of things. We did that story with MNP too. 3 in 5 British Columbians don't believe they can meet their debt obligations. Yeah. So what are we waiting for, Tiff? What are we waiting for? The question is, what are we waiting for?
Yeah. Well, it was a bizarre summary of the decision yesterday, talking about how resilient the Canadian economy is and how it's growing and so on.
It's like he had a call
parallel universe.
A call with Jerome Powell, and Jerome says, well, I'm not lowering interest rates because Trump made me mad. And then Tiff said, yeah, well, we'll hold the line as well, right? Hold the line.
Yeah, Doug Ford was furious, and he straight away came out.
Well, I mean,
But
most people should.
yeah, it's very odd, isn't it? It's very strange. But I mean, it's funny that Blacklock's have highlighted all of the mistakes that they've made because they do seem quite error prone.
Yellow journalists. You're talking about the yellow journalists again. Here's another one. The Canada Revenue Agency is so reliant. Listen to this. It's so reliant on consultants. An internal audit warns the managers developed an employer-employee relationship with contractors. The revenue agency spent millions on private advisors last year, though it has 55,000 employees. So what are 55,000 employees doing? Watching Netflix? Because we know that they just cut off Netflix because they were streaming terabytes and terabytes of data. So now they said you're not allowed to watch Netflix during work. You would think that would have been a common sense rule in the past, but again, here they are relying heavily on consultants again.
Well, I do feel like the public service, especially under Trudeau, there were many claims. It was accused quite often of using it almost as a kind of like jobs program, like a middle class welfare scheme or something like that. And yeah, you can certainly see where those criticisms would come from when there are so many people employed, and yet it's often very inefficient and error prone and all the rest of it.
So we have almost the same amount of CRA employees as the IRS does, and yet we spent $58 million on consultants on top of the 55,234 employees.
And obviously, it's a much smaller country and a much smaller economy.
Well,
like taxes. Bringing in much less money.
Economy, 1/10 the population, but hey, and then they can't even do the job. They have consultants that are spending $58 million. Again, I think that as we've seen with U.S. aid in the States, there's that one guy that actually now has that sentence, $550 million that he was bilking U.S. aid for with kickbacks and bad loans and all kinds of stuff through that. But he's going to jail for it in the U.S. and they're digging through more of it. I think they need a similar thing here in Canada where they start digging through all of these loans. You know, the one that even with Stephen Jabot's company is involved with, we can't get access to those. That part of the reason they prorogue government because it wouldn't provide the documentation for that. And
yeah, it kind of led to the election in a weird sort of way, didn't it?
I think this is the last one from Hollywood Blacklocks here, and it says, I mean, this one is just common sense. They're going to start using AI for weather forecasts. I think most of the time, the weather forecast is best to look out the window as opposed to the live forecast, especially in the Okanagan here, right? But AI obviously is going to be really good at predicting weather because it's just crunching statistics.
Yeah, and models and things, isn't it? Yeah.
And then this one, we got a little clip here to play first, and then we'll come back to this here.
So, you know, the fact that we're able to provide that opportunity for 6,000 people is massive for the economy here, not just in Toronto, but in Ontario. And in fact, if you look, people think about the CNE and how much fun it is, it also has a huge economic impact, $143 million economic impact for the province of Ontario. And we're looking to grow that.
Okay, so if someone is coming in today, what can they expect? What should they do in order to land that job?
Come in with energy, right? Show how you're going to bring fun. Remember that this is a
54,000 people applied for the jobs. I think there's about 5,000 jobs. Come on, it's a part-time job, right? This is the CNE, right?
I mean, it's almost like we've gone back to the 19th century in some ways, or the sort of like early 20th century in terms of the imbalance, especially in the unskilled areas. The imbalance between the employer and employees. It's just a disaster.
When I was 19. There was 50 guys lined up at the gate at a small mill in Midway every day looking for a job, begging for a job. I mean, are we back there? Are we doing that now? Again, here's Danielle Smith pointing it out. She's saying we need immigration, but we need it to be common sense. And this is what I thought immigration was. We were supposed to bring economic immigration in, and yet here they just passed two things that they're saying they're going to bring in grandparents, which aren't going to add to our economic activity. And then they're going to, if you're part of the LGBTQ community and you feel persecuted anywhere in the world, you can come to Canada. But Danielle Smith is saying, you know, like that this is, and you said it really good yesterday. You said the schools lived off immigration and everybody else paid the price for it. They made money off of it, but the rest of the population paid for it, and lack of access to healthcare, skyrocketing rents, inflation all over the place. And this is what she's saying, the same thing. We need sustainable immigration, and it's not fair to the people that are here already, and it's not fair to the people that you're bringing in. It's a broken system. Even David Eby said that when I interviewed him, that the liberal policies for immigration were daft.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's excellent. I mean, even though it's easy to point to the people that suffer and the things that get worse and so on. But for some people, this is absolutely superb news. And that means employers who get to make absolutely scads of money paying nothing, paying sometimes even less than what you can legally pay people, and also put massive pressure on workers. You know, for them, it's a dream come true. And then on top of that, the ones that sell stuff, they also get all this new market, all these new consumers who are going to buy their products in grocery stores and all the rest of it. So it's like absolutely fantastic news for those people. And they often live in sequestered, secret little rich enclaves where reality doesn't ever knock on the door. It's fine. They don't have to deal with any of the consequences.
And I think right now, yeah, the hotel lobbies loved it. You know, I mean, yep. They filled up the hotels with high rent. They did the same thing in the United States. It was almost like we followed their plan, the Democratic plan. Like we can't even create our own plan. We just like, oh, that's working down there, and there's a lot of grift and graft going on. Let's just jump onto it. And here we are. We're in the same pickle. Yes, some people are getting very, very rich off because, again, I would say if you look at the Canadian economy, who's done really well, it's the ones that have tied themselves to the government trough, where they're actually feeding off government. Same thing with this green stuff, this green energy programs. Look at all the money, the billions and billions of dollars that went into these EV battery plants. Most of them now closed up or postponed. Look at all the money went into all these programs. And then how much is that money that they accusing Stephen Guilbeault of allegedly funneling into his own companies? 250 million, something like that.
It's certainly a huge sum, yeah. But I mean, this is a war that's been going on between the elite or the rulers, whatever you want to say, and the masses. This has been going on for thousands of years, really, where there's this kind of rivalry. And if you read, there's I don't know if you call him a historian, but there's a chap called Peter Turchin, very famous, talks about this all the time. He talks about something called elite overproduction, which is basically like the elite getting too strong and too numerous while the peasants are punished for it. It's not too dissimilar to that. And I know it's wrapped up in all kinds of fancy language, a very specific language about Canada and, you know, the jobs market and all the rest of it. And sometimes it's wrapped up in moral sort of questions as well. But ultimately, it boils down to this immigration patch has made the average Canadian poorer, but members of the elite richer. And
the harshest critics of this record immigration is that it's nothing more than modern day slavery. You're bringing in people, paying them, like many of them, under the minimum wage, and they're also, if they're illegal, you can do a bunch of other things here. We've seen it in the Okanagan as well. Lots of allegations out there, and lots of fines. The federal government fining many people for not even paying the minimum wage, and there's lots of ties. I think even one of the world organizations called it modern day slavery.
Yeah, certainly the illegal immigration, the way that those illegal immigrants are abused, you know, in agriculture and the rest of it. I mean, the US has been doing that for a long time. It also happens in China, because believe it or not, there's illegal immigration in China, but from within China. She's not supposed to be able to leave certain parts of China, like rural China. You're not supposed to be able to do it, and move to Shanghai or whatever, without the permission of the Communist Party. So there's a lot of that goes on in China where they illegally go to Shanghai and then they just get like abused by employers. It's obvious, and I point that out to say that this is obviously a human instinct, isn't it? And you know, the monopoly men of the world, they want to pay the least that they can possibly pay, and they want to maximize their profits. Well, it's just unfortunate that they seem to be being able to do that with some ease, and it's been 30 years at least, I think that's been the case.
That's why we've seen this wealth gap just get bigger and bigger and bigger as we move along. And the elites, and one of the readers here, the regular viewers, actually saying that, you know, it's the elites, and it is a lot of elitism. And we've seen many people get very, very, very rich, and mostly of it is being through the funneling of government funds through their companies and different things. And we see the same thing in the States, and that's why they closed down USAID. But here, you guys, and CBC, our friends at the CBC, they're out there trying to stoke the Canadian anti-American sentiment and saying, "What aren't you buying on the eve, tariffs eve?" They call it, right? Tariffs eve, right? So this is them stoking things. I mean, they just continue to stoke, right? Because they love a divided public, right? So there you go. And then they, got some people to say refuse to cross border. It's easy to get a couple of people to do your narrative. I bet you and I could phone some people right now and say, well, are you done with funding CBC? I bet we could even ask the people that are watching it. How many people that are watching right now would like to continue funding the CBC or would like to see the end of it? And then they could go out and get their own funding and actually run a company on their own without having to rely on taxpayer dollars. Go ahead and put your thing in there. And while you're doing that, though, we can talk about, Franco there. He just exposes more here, and I think Canadian Taxpayers Federation here. CBC has more than 780 producers. How many cities in Canada that actually have a CBC office? They have a producer like 2 to 1, 450 managers, 250 directors, 100 advisors, 80 analysts, and a bunch of bureaucrats paid more than 100 grand. Do they outnumber the actual reporters that are on the ground? So what is CBC? Is it an organization for news? Is it an organization to just collect tax dollars? What is it? What's its main purpose?
Well, I mean, fundamentally, it's a state entity, isn't it? And as a consequence, and quite naturally, I think it's absolutely jam-packed with bureaucrats and people whose jobs aren't really important. Sorry, bureaucrats.
There's our headline. We got a couple of viewers that just said, well, so we can say we spoke to expert Canadians that would not like to fund the CBC anymore, right? There's our headline. Kind of like CBC, they go out and find somebody that is all stoked up and fired up, and they write a story on it. Just ridiculous. And here's Doug Ford, though. Again, he's just threw away because he got mad at Elon Musk because he supported this whatever drive fear about the Americans. He went out and canceled that Starlink deal where people could have internet basically in 5 minutes, and but now he has to pay a penalty to Starlink. So there you go. We got nothing, and we're going to still pay. Good on you,
cost. That's the cost of political posturing, isn't it? But Doug Ford, in his mind, he won the Ontario election because he came out hard against Trump, which I think is probably right. That was his strategy. So as far as he's concerned, this is probably a small price to pay in taxpayers' money to ensure that he stays in power and is, reasonably popular.
A small price for everyone, Canadians, to pay for his political future.
Yeah, and we are quite familiar with that at the federal level as well, aren't we? Because a lot of these parties and a lot of these politicians, they're almost like going predator, aren't they? They're turning predatory, and they're eating us harmless deer to try and advance their own careers, and it's pretty brutal.
And one of the things we've seen in the States, and hopefully we get to see it here in Canada, is they've cut the money supply off through USAID to many of these media organizations, because many of them are bleeding the government. And like in Canada, we feed that, and we're seeing it kind of funnel out, and we're seeing some of these organizations go under. Here's Media Matters on the brink of collapse, right? And this is after 2 decades of smearing conservatives. They went after, they said things that weren't true. They went after Elon Musk, tons of lawsuits. Now they can't even pay their legal bills. And they're saying now they just have to go bankrupt. And this is many of these organizations, including Stephen Colbert's show, in which Justin Trudeau was in the Alps there wearing a shirt in I guess, solidarity with Stephen Colbert. Maybe him and Stephen Colbert can run their own show and fund it with, like Trudeau's trust fund.
Justin and Steve, the podcast.
Justin and Steve on the road again. They could do that. Sock boy.
I'm just amazed by this dude's hair. Sorry, I have to point it out. It looks like, in Back to the Future, where his dad. He's old at the end. Suddenly his dad is older. It kind of looks like that, like a really crap wig.
Here's our favorite reporter from GB News trying to get an answer from the London mayor here. Let's play a little clip here from her.
Mr. Khan, I'm a Westminster City Councillor. I just wanted to ask you on your thoughts on knife crime going up by 60% in the past 2 years. No, this is the Met thing. Knife crime, 60% up, and you don't care. Nothing to say? Nothing to say? Nothing to say about knife crime going up? 81,000 phones stolen? Nothing, you don't care? If you want to write in, they say. Great. Mr. Khan, will you accept the debate for Nigel?
That's good. And I play that clip because you have to understand that's the boat we're in. You know, we're told that if we want an interview, write in or do whatever. And then, of course, they ignore it. And that's what they do to her. So this is why journalists are like her are subjected to basically hunting people down on the street to try to get an answer, which they continue to refuse. And then they got the bodyguards that push them back and say, just write in your request for an interview, which they'll never get.
Yeah, I mean, God, comparing Canada to London, the political scene in London, which I was quite sort of intimately familiar with, is sickeningly corrupt. It's grotesque. It's like something out of the Middle Ages or something like that. So I really hope that Canada's not that fallen that low. But I see exactly what you're saying in terms of trying to get access. I mean, we've seen this kind of thing, haven't we, with people chasing Chrystia Freeland down the street and that kind of thing. So in this sense, yeah, there is a comparison to be made.
How many times have you reached out to Gibbo now for an interview?
Oh, God knows, too many.
Yeah, like how
but I
many
will
times?
say, in the interest of being, full disclosure, I've also reached out to Pierre Poilievre, probably 30 times. Actually, it's probably more like 50 times, including in the last few weeks. And I just get nothing. They just ignore me because they would rather not jeopardize their, their potential to win power. Basically, that's it. At the end of the day, they're afraid to speak to certain people.
Media's job is to hold power accountable. And if they refuse to be held accountable, then it's up to you, the listener, to do something about it. Exercise that in a vote and say, if you won't be held accountable, if you won't answer, like, again, one thing about Trump, say all you want about how, like he's whatever. Access to press is not one of the things you could cite him on. He provides access at cabinet meetings, at dinners, on his airplane, on the tarmac.
When the bagpipes are playing, when Elton John is playing.
Whatever, right? He may call you shit. I would rather have someone call me crap and actually take a question than just, do this, like, email in a question, right? Which, reminds us.
Yeah, and that's something to be fair, that's something that Trump has been doing since long before he went into politics. He's always been approachable by the media and friendly with the media, hasn't he? So I think that's part of his whole. That's how he rules. That's how he maintains his control, is through these constant comments to the media. But yeah, I mean, it has to be said, he would never do something like that. He would never, because it's almost like snobbery as well, isn't it, from Sadiq Khan? Now it's just like, I'm the mayor, don't you know? It's like, send the guards in.
I'm much too important, and then the bodyguards around him, right? Like, we've never seen that.
Yeah, before. And he is. I'm sorry to say and to be so candid, but he's just an appalling man in so many ways. But if you watch him in like the equivalent of Question Period, because they do that in the London Assembly, just listen to the way that he responds to democratically elected representatives of Londoners, just with pure contempt, dripping with contempt. He's quite a sort of obnoxious man who has many critics in England.
Trying to get through this in an hour, so we're going to try and speed up a little bit here. But and then another deal made. Trump made another deal. You got a deal with South Korea. And listen to these deals, basically the same deal. Sold them LNG. Okay, right. Another one that bought LNG, that came to Canada begging for LNG. And they bought some LNG, $100 billion worth of LNG, and they got a 15% tariff and a zero tariff for Americans. And basically, he's got a boilerplate deal that he's given to people. So that's what you can expect, I would say. If you're going to get a deal from the United States, it's going to be a 15% tariff, and you're going to have to give some money, because they coughed up some money too. They gave $350 billion to the U.S. government that Trump himself gets to decide where it gets invested. So they're basically buying access to the market. That's what that says. Right?
Yeah, it's astonishing, isn't it?
$350 billion, we buy access to the market, and that's
it's the death of it's the death of the trading system that we thought would last forever. It's the death of liberalism, really, to put it sort of bluntly. It's a disaster. I mean, unless the Democrats win next time and kill this whole thing, but that doesn't look likely at the minute.
The Democrats are lucky if they, survive. Anybody that survives the way that they're going, they're at an all-time low in popularity. But let's listen to Scott Bassett here talking about the China deal, which sounds like they're close. I mean, they say that lots, but this sounds pretty close. So let's play a little clip here.
We met for 2 full days in Stockholm. The Chinese are tough negotiators. We're tough too. It was led by the vice premier, my counterpart, Hu Feng, who I have great respect for. He is both a statesman, a tough negotiator, and very senior in the leadership.
Well, that's good there. It's good enough. They basically say they have a deal. They're working out some of the kinks, but.
I mean, it's hard though. Just to go back to South Korea there, and also Japan would be another one. It's hard to compare them with Canada because, as Doug Ford never tires of mentioning, Canada is an enormous purchaser of American goods, much more than a country like South Korea. So they don't have quite the same leverage over Canada, and that's one of the reasons that Canada is like one of 2 countries that have retaliated. I think the other one's China, isn't it? And that's basically it for retaliation.
I mean, China's in a different league. Like, I mean, they have military might, they have lots of things, and they have economic.
We still
power.
buy more stuff off America than the Chinese do, though. So that's that does matter. And somebody as transactional as Donald Trump will be very well aware of that. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's so frustrated with Canada, because it's not as easy to steamroll Canada.
And here's one of the best stock traders in the United States, Nancy Pelosi. She just got interviewed by Jake Tapper, and she had a little fit there. Let's play the small clip with Nancy and Jake Tapper there.
Nancy Pelosi became rich.
Why do you have to read that? We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come to talk about.
Yeah, but I wanted
what that means in the election.
I wanted to give you a chance just to respond. He accused you of insider trading. What's your response to that?
That's ridiculous. In fact, I very much support the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they go to jail.
The Sadiq Khan experience again, isn't it? It's like, why have you asked me that question? I didn't come on here to talk about that. Shut your mouth. Shut your goddamn mouth. You represent people. You're a servant. I can't believe Tapper kept his head on his shoulders there. I think I would have exploded in fury at that. Who the hell does she think she is?
She's a better trader than Warren Buffett. She's growing her portfolio. Like, there's absolutely rich, but she says it's her husband, like that is trading. She doesn't do the trading. She just, she might,
she doesn't provide the tips.
So they're actually trying to pass this bill. It's called the Pelosi Act. Imagine that. They call it the Pelosi Act there to stop Congress people from trading. And the same thing could be said about Carney and his blind trust, right? Like, these things. I mean, how do all these politicians go into politics, they make a decent salary, but then they come out Pelosi is filthy rich. I don't know if you remember during COVID, she sat there in her kitchen where she had a wall of freezers behind her, like a wall of freezers. And she said, I don't know what people are complaining about, because and she opened up a drawer and says, I just picked my ice cream. And she had she almost had a Ben & Jerry's in the bottom drawer there. And meanwhile, most people couldn't even afford bread or get bread. And she was showing them how they just need to suck it up. And,
that's what happens when you're in power for as long as somebody like that is. And also that's why you would say something as outrageous as she just did to a reporter. She obviously doesn't think of herself as like a representative of the people anymore, or a servant of the people. She doesn't think that way anymore. And you can tell based on the language and the behavior, she thinks of herself as something like an earl or a duke or something like that. She basically thinks of herself as an aristocrat, doesn't she?
Okay, we're going to try and speed it up here, but we got this. This is probably going to be the best fiction story ever written here. There's Kamala Harris is putting out her books, trying to make some money, obviously. We're going to play a small clip from Kamala Harris here.
I launched my campaign for President of the United States. 107 days, traveling the country, fighting for our future. The shortest presidential campaign in modern history. It was intense, high stakes, and deeply personal. For me and for so many.
Watch that and you can go.
Must read about that. Yeah.
She also spent the most money and gave away money to people like Oprah Winfrey, who needed $3 million. Beyonce, I think it was $10 million. Imagine what this this word salad of a book is going to be. Definitely fiction.
Well, imagine how much money she spent paying the person that wrote it as well. I'd be interested in that.
Again, we're going to try and speed things up here. So Peachland wildfire, the highways reopened there and the evacuation order remains in place. We had a fire there in Kelowna. You want to give a little update on that real quick?
It is as it was last night still. They said that they're going to have their next update at mid-morning. But yeah, it's the same size. The roads have reopened, bit of traffic on 97, and the evacuation alerts, or there's one alert, 2 orders, they remain in place.
And then I interviewed the guys. They formed an association, the Kelowna Marine Tourism thing, their association over the dock fees. And you can go watch that interview. It's actually a pretty good interview. I interviewed a couple people. One of them is Dennis Dorshuk, and he's also I do interviews with him on the Friends of Ukraine because they were sending stuff to Ukraine. But good interview. Go watch that and see what you think of that, because they refuse to pay that. And on August 1st, which is the August long weekend, they say if they don't pay, they're going to lock the dock up. So that'll be interesting for Kelowna tourism if that comes to a head. David Eby says it. This is like, I have no idea what he's talking about. He says Canada is going to win the race to bring LNG to Asian markets. Somebody should tell him that the Americans just did a deal with Japan. That's Asia, isn't it? Just did a deal with South Korea. That's Asia. Those are the 2 countries that came to us begging for LNG. So, and then the European Union. I don't like which Asian market is he going to win the race on?
The Americans have basically, under Trump, put a gun to the heads of these countries and just said, we're not going to protect you. We're not going to give you market access unless you buy our LNG. And then David Eby, yesterday in a press conference, is saying, now people are going to buy our LNG because it's the most, it's got the lowest emissions in the whole world. So it's like, no, they're not. You silly bugger.
No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not.
But, you know, I mean, to be fair, I feel like that's a bit harsh on Eby, because at least he's actually, for the first time that I can remember with him as Premier, he is actually trying to do something positive for the province and the economy. And he's going around and he's announcing these LNG projects. I mean, credit where it's due, but I think he's been a little bit ridiculous there, saying that Canada can beat the Americans because, well, maybe in some sort of, if the future is very strange and it's run by Kamala Harris or something like that. Yeah, maybe. But as things look now, I don't think so.
We're going to blow by a couple things here because we just got a thing. I was going to play a clip from Tiff Macklem, but it's just mumbo jumbo anyway. But Doug Ford's shocked by it. He said that as we stare down economic uncertainty, and this is in our market segment here, he's putting hundreds of thousands of jobs at risk. It's never been more important to stimulate the economy. I mean, a lot of people are saying that, but I don't know. Again, was that a call with Jerome Powell? Market's relatively flat today, too. There's not much going on. Yeah, and then Bitcoin, and that is basically hanging in there as well, near all-time highs. I mean, everything's almost at near all-time highs. And obviously, Donald Trump put out a thing, too, that Jerome Powell, too late. Jerome Powell basically lame duck. Basically, he's like his term runs out in May, and they're going to cut his kneecaps off anyway. It'll just be a little bit longer pain. And, Trump going at him. But yeah, Hudson Bay back in court. They want permission to sell those 6 leases. So that's to the Chinese billionaire there that has some ties to China as well. And this is a picture. I took this picture in Calgary, and like lots of Hudson Bays in Calgary. I mean, an iconic store, way older than Canada itself. I think 1651, and it's now being picked at as a dead carcass by a Chinese billionaire that is going to turn it into a bazaar with her name on it. I think it's her logo is like Ruby Lee with a little heart on it or something like that, and turn it into kind of like a street market. So that's what we want, right? There you go. That's under the Liberal watch. That the Canada's oldest company, basically done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's dead, isn't it? Yeah.
In our transportation section here, here's Andrew Scheer. It's confirmed Mark Carney will force companies to make net zero cars with 20% of the sales starting next year. So in 10 years, gas-powered sales will be banned altogether. Yeah, that'll be it seems like we want to self-inflict. I don't understand that, but hey, it seems like we want to self-inflict pain on ourselves for some strange reason.
It looked like this was going to be figured out, didn't it? But there was a period where it was like I was waiting for the announcement, but then doesn't look like it.
No. And then Elon Musk put this out and saying X is now the #1 app in the USA. I'd say if you don't use X, you should. I'm on there, and Ian's on there. I'm on there as Jim Check. Ian's on there as well. And then they've expanded ride hail into San Francisco Bay Area, and I was there just recently too. And that's that whole Palo Alto section there too, right? Silicon Valley section there, so you can get yourself a Tesla there. And then you put this one, an ice mummy found in Siberia, decorated with intricate tattoos. There you go. 25
Just look
years
at
old,
that.
500 years
Look
old.
how beautiful those leopards are there. Good
Yeah.
work.
There you go. A griffin and a stag. And
Yeah.
then health section. This is interesting. President Trump signing executive order to bring the presidential fitness test back to school. I don't know if you had that when you were in school, but when I went there, they had the participation awards. Not participation. You did these tests in elementary school, and you got either gold, silver, or bronze, or award of excellence. And you all tried out. You had to do the chin ups. You had to do all these different things. And
That's cool. You used to do something called a bleep test. I don't know if that exists in Canada.
I don't know what that is yet.
Yeah,
and then
I think we got awards for that.
I listened to this Diary podcast, and it says being sedentary is actually literally worse than smoking. So, I mean, get out there and do some stuff. Sunshine,
All right.
very good
See you
for
later
you as
then.
well. Sunshine, and then just, lots of aerobic exercise. Get some exercise, get some sunshine. And sauna supposedly can scale back your aging by 20 years if you do some sauna here. And then we're into our fun part of the day here as we're trying to finish up real quick here. And here it is. We knew that he was going to jump into this. We were waiting for him. And there it is. Tesla Optimus has great genes. There you go. I mean, this thing's all over the internet. Poor Sydney Sweeney being picked on.
She's in his sights, isn't she?
And then here's our favorite guy that said you weren't allowed to drive your car to go on summer vacation because the world was ending. Now he's the CEO of a tourist destination where he wants you to drive your car. It's a clown show. It's a clown show.
Yeah.
It's literally a clown show. It should say underneath his title, anything for money. Anything for money. That should be his title. Anything for money.
Or position, status. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, Mark Carney put this out. If you're reading this, I don't know what this is supposed to be. This comedy, who's running his account? If you're reading this, you're probably saving money in taxes this year. On July 1st, we delivered a promise to cut taxes. Did you?
Cheers, Mark. I'll bear that in mind when I spend $300 on 10 vegetables at the grocery store.
And then here you go. We'll leave you with this. All our viewers, we'll leave you with this. 90% of my investments are in America. I haven't lived in Canada for decades, and elbows up, idiots. There you go. Why not, right?
I don't know if that's accurate about not living in Canada. He definitely had a property in Canada, didn't he? But yeah, I get the gist.
This is our funny section. It don't sound like a good joke.
We need food of the day. Mine's Nancy Pelosi, obviously. Every time I see her, I have to give her that award.
She makes Francois Philippe champagne, and Melanie Jolie looks smart, but on the other side of that, she's got filthy rich. So she may not be as stupid as she sounds.
She makes Louis XVI look humble, I would say.
Playing us for fools. I think that's more the case. So she is the fool master. Justin Trudeau, the Hall of Famer fool of the day. And maybe she's the king of fools or queen of fools, and she knows how to. That's our show. We kept it under an hour. I made a promise. I got to take my granddaughter to the zoo. So we're off to the zoo.
It's amazing that we did that.
We talked about the zoo as well.
Enjoy the nice animals there. I don't know. Do they have a polar bear there or a panda even? What are the highlights?
I have no idea. But yeah, well, our friend that watches the show regularly says the chicken dance. Yeah, the elbows up dance has got to be like the new wedding dance. Like if you're out there at a wedding, you can tell the people not to play the chicken dance, do the elbows up dance, because I think that's going to be the new Canadian fame thing, right? Why not?
Yeah.
Elbows up and get
to look cool.
Right? Yeah. Anyway, that's our show. Back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. And enjoy the rest of the day. And we'll see what tomorrow brings in this crazy, crazy world. Look at that beautiful, beautiful landscape in behind us here. Beautiful day in Calgary. All right. Cheers. and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now.